Hi, this is S.J. Childs. Thanks so much for joining Season 4 of the S.J. Childs Show. I'm so pleased to have such valued listeners and viewers. Today's episode is with Gabriel Gherasim. He is a New York-based Romanian author and journalist. He has great advice and great books. His links are at the end. Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Childs Show. I'm your host, S.J. Childs, and today I have a wonderful guest, author, and just a great mind. We're going to have an amazing conversation. Gabriel Gherasim is here. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Perfectly.
Wonderful.
It's an immaculate pronunciation, Miss Brantford.
And tell me where you're from.
So I was born and I was raised until I was 15 in Romania, in a very Orwellian Romania under the communist yoke. And by the grace of God, my father and I were able to live as refugees for 3 or 4 years in Italy. And eventually I came to the United States, where I graduated from high school and then to university.
Wonderful.
So essentially, I've been in the United States more than half of my life. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't lose the accent. So I look at on the fortunate part.
I love it. I think you should definitely take that for a fortunate part. Oh, that's incredible. And what an interesting background. I haven't done like an ancestry about myself or anything, but what I remember from my childhood is my parents always spending a lot of time in Basque festivals and in Basque communities and things like that. And I feel like it's part of me. Like I said, I don't know for sure, but I always feel it. And so I think that, that part of the world, I'm so fascinated. I'm very drawn to that.
So the Basque population, along with the Berbers in Africa and the Celts in Ireland, are genetically related, and also supposedly they are the original population in Europe and Africa, coming from Atlantis. So they have a long history. They can teach us a few things.
And I'm AB RH negative, which is quite a rare. It's not the rarest blood type, but it is one of the more rare blood types. I think it's like 3% or a very small percentage of the population with that. So when we were my husband, when he was researching, why is she RH negative, and a lot of those types of answers were coming about.
So he may be advised to respect you on 2 accounts. First of all, by whom you are as a person. And of course, his wife, his better half. And secondly, because RH stands for rhesus, meaning monkey. So the ones who are RH negative supposedly are the original Anunnaki, the original out of cosmos population. So definitely tell him you know better, and what's the matter?
He knows. 17 years of practice he's had now, so
good for him. He's a smart man. When I got married, my father the night before called me and said, "Son, congratulations, you get married. Now you'll have a simpler decision begin tomorrow in relation to your wife." And I said, "What is that, Father?" He said, "You'll have to decide if in regards to her, do you want to be right and miserable, or do you want to be wrong and happy?" Because he said, "You look how I treat your mother, look how your brother treats his wife, look how your grandparents on both sides treat your respective grandmas, and we were all wrong and happy." So it served me well. So I've been toured now for 21 years, wrong and happy.
Yes, congratulations. Oh, absolutely. I find that so wonderful, and finding like-minded individuals to talk to. Where are you located now here in the United States? You're on the East Coast, right?
Yes, I live in New York.
Okay.
With my beautiful better half.
Yes.
She is teaching ballet, particularly the character dance aspect of ballet, which is a superb combination of the traditional dances, which went beyond the abstract art and represented anything from fertility to courtship to harvesting, festivals, to keeping time, if you believe, in the form of the priestesses of the god Horus. So she's combining both the symbolism and the forms of the more rustic dances within the balletic forms, which is exactly what the character dance is. And I I wear many hats. I work as a borough manager for New York Connects, which is a disability specialized agency associated with a 40 years old organization called Sydney, the Center for the Independence of the Disabled, New York.
I love that.
I also do some writing and some counseling. So there you have it.
I love it. It's fantastic. And your wife sounds divine, by the way. Absolutely. And that is so incredible. I am so excited for our conversation and this connection today. It's just amazing. And of course, I had the questions and the sheet and everything in front of me, and that all goes out the window when I start listening, because it comes, I start speaking from the heart and not from the head, which is a much better place to be. So very authentic. So I apologize if I go off script and I don't follow one.
No, it's actually the best way, because the sheet and the brain goes into structural thinking, whereas the heart goes into the sentimental and emotional aspects of who we are. And we need more of that, Ms. Bradford. So I thank you for going that route.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Well, let's just start at the beginning. Where did, what started on this path for you? What was it writing or a different experience? What brought you to where you are today?
So my experience in healing and looking at the world from the perspective of gratitude came initially because I was confronted with many health problems, which fortunately found very positive resolution over the years. Then I also was taught by my father, who was a survivor of the communist prisons, the torture, the demeaning, the indoctrination, and all this. And it always surprised me, Ms. Bradshaw, how this man was looking for reason, was seeking for reasons to feel grateful in life. And so he made a very, very good balance, which I wrote about in the latest book, Grazia Cantantes, between the necessity that people have to pay attention to in both the having values, meaning material things that are inanimate, right? And the being values in the human being, which are the electromagnetic values that are related to anything from life to love, from our understanding of taking to our understanding of giving. And he told me, Gabriel, make sure that balance is there, because the human being is made of two entities. One is the material one, the perishable, right? The ashes to ashes, flesh and bones. The other one, that's what we call the human in the human being. And the other one is the being in the human being. And that is anything from our lives to our understanding of things, to the decision to sacrifice our wants and needs. I'm talking from the men's perspective, to those who are weaker than us, and to do it out of love as opposed to obligation. And when we sacrifice out of love, what could be interpreted by the having values in us as a loss, the being values in us find happiness, because it is what differentiates us from not all animals, because a lot of mammalian animals follow the same genetic, if you will, self-sacrifice on the part of the males for the weaker ones, but from the reptiles. And that's an interesting thing, because the reptiles have no empathy. So without prolonging this too much, and
that's so fascinating.
And the reptiles not having any empathy, any compassion, which are aspects of the mammalian brain, will have no hesitation for mama alligator to eat the babies just hatched and so forth. There is no sense of sacrifice out of love.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is incredible. And we really, when we put ourselves on the same plane, because when we really look at it, we're all of the earth, we're all of, the human and the mammals and the reptilians, we all live here, coexist in here together. And there's such a symbiotic relationship that is so taken for granted, or just looked past completely by others. I just saw a post the other day that had the picture of a tree and the picture of a lung, and it showed the root system as the same. The root systems follows the same, paths of where they get their nutrients, and the blood flows and the air flows. And it just really reminded me of my belief in nature and of our existence here, and just really being so grateful for that around us, and not so caught up in, now that I'm guilty of this, of course, but not so caught up in the digital frame of the world, as much as getting out and seeing the beauty of nature and connecting with that.
So you use a magical word, symbiosis, and it's magical because it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. So we look with awe at the beauty of symbiosis. In the same vein, a sewer paradigm about looking at the world is a Japanese founder of a system of thinking and eating and acting and looking at the world from a holistic way. His name is Michio Kushi, and he wrote a book called Macrobiotics. Mm-hmm. And coming back to your, just to extract based on your example, that little part that he discusses in terms of symbiosis between human beings and plants, let's look at it how symbiotic indeed this is. So the plant has roots in the earth, the trunk coming out, the branches and the leaves and the fruits on the top. Now let's look at the human being and imagine that the hair is the root of the human being. The limbs, right, hands and legs are its trunk. And of course, the fruits would be the children that come out of it. And so essentially, if you flip either one of those, you will see that they share the same characteristics, which indeed made me appreciate your use of the word symbiosis between mammals and, of course, human beings and trees and plants. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. I really, really have a great connection with our family, my little family. We really appreciate the nature and the grace of silence, and of, I love to look at things, being a poet myself, and I write children's books that are based on poetry, or I guess you could say. But there was a time where I was writing kind of abstract poetry, and I was so caught up in the simplest idea of things like water or a snowflake, and how they can be the most silent most peaceful, quietest things. And they can cause the most destruction and the most chaos. And they have to be given grace and perspective and respect, right? In both ways.
So that's a superb example. Water. Water is water, which is why it has, 75% of the earth which is covered in water. And then, of course, we have the water of the steam, the water of the rain, the water of the ice. So now we are talking water taking all shapes and sizes and forms that exist in nature. Water is also a conductor of the electromagnetic values of the earth, which indeed people forget that the earth also has its own soul, if you will, in the form of the electromagnetic frequencies which it uses. And which gives it life. And so a fellow named Emoto wrote a book about the intelligence of water. So what he says is that water, and he makes references to studies that both he and other physicians in the quantum physics field have done. What he says is the water is neutral until we project onto it a certain kind of energy. So he found out that the various shapes of water that are, let's say, impregnated by these thoughts and then frozen and then taken out the next day and cut out in crystals and put under the microscope. So the shapes of water of somebody who had even put on a label around the container of that specific distilled water words like prayer, love, joy, dedication, beauty. They are superbly beautiful. And the shapes of the water which had been exposed to words like hate, fear, anger, judgmentalism, they are extremely distorted. And that works for both what we would call melodic music and for what we would call distorted music or dissonant music. And so the idea that you're talking about water being a conductor and reflecting, therefore, the cognitive electromagnetic fields to which it is exposed is very powerful. He can be checked really easily, if for no other reason, at YouTube, just putting Emoto, E-M-O-T-O, and water.
Yeah.
And all these pictures will show up accordingly.
It's incredible. I learned about that, about a decade ago, maybe longer, going through massage college and really, experiencing and learning about all of the energy parts of it. I've always been drawn to the difference, walking kind of on my own path. and
sorry to interrupt. Just as a side note, let us not forget that we are made of water.
100%.
When we are babies, we are at about 80-85% made out of water. As we age, the water ratio to the mass goes down a little bit and all the way up to about 55% when we are really old and decrepit. The point is that's why it is important for other than physiological reasons to drink plenty of water, keep ourselves hydrated with healthy water, as in spring water. Some people use blessed water from certain churches or in certain Asian temples. And of course, what that really means is that if it was blessed, or if it is pure in the mountain, or if it is from glacial mountains, it is pure in the sense of the electromagnetic permeating into it and from it. And therefore, it's important to drink water, be hydrated, and drink the good kind of water.
Exactly. That's right.
Sorry.
I love it.
There we go. So sorry for having interrupted you and with water.
I love it. And you'll appreciate that our episode is actually our podcast sponsor is a place in my neighborhood, a local water company called the Water Body of Basics. and it's all about water wellness. And so that's our family is big on water. And you and I haven't met, so you don't even know anything about me or anything. It's so exciting because it's like all of these things align, and it's just because we're in the right place at the right time, following the right vibration and frequencies. And I have a son with autism. My whole family has autism, but this particular son has a photographic memory. He also has I always say it wrong, synesthesia, where he sees colors, rather hears colors, and can see sounds. It's fascinating. So I thought that you would really appreciate that. He doesn't drink anything but water. That's all he'll partake is water. He's very picky, of course, about other things, but the most hydrated person I've ever met in my life.
So wonderful. So if you wouldn't mind experimenting, I would suggest to him that on his bottles of water, he puts nice labels with beautiful thoughts, thoughts that inspire him. Beauty, love, creation, music, sound, harmony, peace, serenity, some of them. And then since he has that superb gift of seeing vibrations and sounds into colors, he could tell us and teach us if there is any difference in the quote-unquote frequency and color of the water.
I love that.
I think he would be our scientist du jour because
Brilliant.
of his gifts.
I love that.
And also, I like that you said, which is a phenomenal, important way to look at things, especially for somebody working with individuals with disabilities. It's very important to refer to a disability as having a disability, which was the right verb you used from a holistic point. And the reason for that is this. If I say that I am depressed, which very often the people make the mistake of identifying the disability or the shortage of any sort as being that I'm poor because I don't have money. No, there are two verbs there. One is one thing to say I am in a I have poor conditions because I have little money. If I say that I am depressed, I cannot possibly detach from my condition. And consciously and subconsciously and even unconsciously, I'm going to fight anybody who is going to try to get me better, because how can I be an individual, somebody who cannot be divided individual, if what I perceive as being part of me, an inherent part of me, the being part, is taken away from me. Whereas if somebody says, I have a disability, that's a material thing, which is detachable. So if I say I have a disability, it's like I have this pen. So now I have it, now I don't. So that's the importance of referring to anything that is considered negative as having that condition instead of being. Number one. Number two, you are talking about your son being, not that I said being, not having, being able to see colors through music. Do you know that it is considered one of the most superb gifts that a person who makes music can be able to also coordinate with the colors, the sounds of music? Very few composers were gifted that way.
And he is a composer, Gabriel. He's self-taught on the piano. He has perfect pitch. It's incredible. The gifts in our family are just undescribable.
So the next step would be, am I doing what am I doing out of love? Or am I doing what am I doing out of a sense of obligation, which follows a sense of responsibility, which follows a sense of fear. If I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to be loved. And invariably, if I'm doing something out of fear as the primary emotion, the secondary one is just a matter of time. That's going to be resistance, resentment. And even if I'm doing the work of God, if I'm doing it out of a sense of obligation, I'm going to hate it. Since your son, I'm assuming he is composing and enjoying both the auditory high frequency vibrations of the sound and the visual high frequency vibrations of the colors out of love, then definitely he's very blessed because he's following his passions out of love, and in doing so he enjoys the experience of life beautifully.
You know, my husband and I had kind of an idea because he has an older daughter that's 21 that we raised, and like to say, you know, made some mistakes along the way, learned how to be a parent with her. And when our next two were born, and especially when our son was diagnosed with autism, we decided we're going to not do what society thinks we should do anymore. We're going to do what we feel is right. And that is by letting our family grow in their own biological terms and conditions. And that way, everything is through love. Yes, they have boundaries. You know, we can't leave the house without clothes on, things like that. But at the same time, we don't have like strict, you have to sit at the table for dinner at 6 o'clock. Like, those aren't rules of our family. Our family's rules are you have to be honest, you have to be fair, you have to be strong, and you have to be wise. And those are the 4 principles we're instilling in our children at home now.
So interesting and beautifully done, because it balances out within 24 hours what we would consider the first 8 hours of being productive. And being productive, sometimes it means playing by the society's rules, such as avoid going naked unless you go to a steam bath.
Exactly.
Even if nudity in itself, from the big statues in the churches of Rome and Florence and so forth, to the hippie time when some of the pictures being taken of the men and women in the natural, right? As the French say. They can be beautiful expressions of life. And at the same time, the first 8 hours in the 24-hour series, every 24 hours, we need to be constructive and quote unquote play by the rules, and we should play out of love. The next 8 hours in the 24-hour series should be what we consider leisure or rest and relaxation. So in so doing, then we can be very liberal in our habits, because it's our 8 hours in the 24 hours where it's me time, if you will. And of course, the third cycle would be 8 hours sleep time. And so it's very important to maintain that balance within one's own capacity. So it doesn't have to be 8 hours of each. It would be 6 hours of that, 10 of that, 7 of that, as long as we, and that's very important, do this balancing to the best of our abilities constantly. Or consistently, if you will. If we do things inconsistently, then that's where the balance go out the window. And then, because human beings, the being part in us, wants purpose in life, then if he or she has too much leisure time, then they do something or think or take certain substances to stimulate them because they are too bored. The opposite, of course, would be that if I'm too stimulated, a workaholic, I'm going to take sedatives in one form or another, mental or behavioral or chemical. And of course, if I'm asleep, if I'm not sleeping properly, that's a form of torture, really, in agencies. So without that balance and trying to cheat on this balance, the human being simply tells the individual, look, you don't have a full life. You don't have a fully feeling life where I, as a human being, can say I have a life without any regrets. So before going through this system in life, one might want to consider or reconsider the importance of balance. And in so doing, he or she will have a fully feeling or meaningful life on all three levels. I hope I didn't go on the
I love that.
Sideways.
It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Now, if tell us about your book and where we can find it, of course. And I'll, of course, have all the links in the description and up on the screen, so no one will miss that.
Thank you very much. So the book has a Latin title. Your son might appreciate particularly the latter part of the term. It's called Gratia Cantantes. And as a subtitle, it has what it really is about. It is a guide to a form of therapy which comes out of gratitude, or recognizance therapy. So what is recognizance, right? In America and English-speaking countries, going into the field of operation of an enemy I'm going to go in recognizance or trying to find out what's going on the other side. That's a conflictual way to look at it, because recognizance simply means science of knowing again. It's inverse. So science would be science, cogni would mean cognitive, knowing, and re again. So meaning what? What's the science of knowing again? So the science of knowing again, as the first part of the title says, gratia means grace, thankfulness, and people say, where do the words thank you come? They come from the words thinking. And so gratia means thankfulness. In the Romance languages, it means grace. And cant means singing, and antes, beforehand. So gratia cantantes simply means basically singing about thankfulness before something happened.
I love that.
Before. So why should I think about gratitude or grace before something happens to me? Well, because going back to the being values in the human being, a lot of things and many aspects of our existence in our life is given for free to us. We didn't do anything to deserve being alive. We just became alive. It was a gift given to us.
We got lucky.
We got lucky.
Yeah, right?
If one looks at the rate of miscarriages and the devastation that the parents cannot keep children go through, one would say, oh man, I was the lucky one, like you said. So life is free, is a gift. The cognition aspect, being able to make sense, is a gift. That's why they say common sense comes before any schooling. What else? Freedom is a gift. People say, where it is etched in the Constitution. In theory, yes, until somebody gets arrested, convicted wrongfully. All it takes is for the 12 jurors, or in some cases 11 in some states, or in other states, one of the jurors may be sent and the trial may become a hung trial. And at the same time, all it takes is for the perception of essentially 12 individuals gathered randomly from the street to perceive an individual being guilty, and constitution or not, that individual is sent to prison. And a lot of those cases, one can look at the DNA, essentially showing that individuals sometimes on the death row have been exonerated, how this freedom is a gift. It's not a given. So if we have life, if we are life, if we are cognitive, if we are free, and of course, if we are healthy, then all these are gifts given to us. So thinking about gratitude before simply means I'm focusing in being grateful for things that I'm taken otherwise for granted. If I don't do that, I'm not going to look at all these gifts as a privilege. I'm going to look at all these gifts with a sense of entitlement. And it's like having a sense of entitlement for Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
They are at any point in time, whomever God gets these Christmas gifts to us can stop doing it.
Yeah.
And certainly, and I'm going to be reminding the audience of an interesting case, Shirley Temple. I don't know if you remember the little girl.
Yes.
Okay. So she recounts in one of her interviews that in the time of the great financial depression, when she was a star, she would receive hundreds gifts for Christmas, Miss Bradford, every single year. Interestingly enough, her mom said to her consistently, look at everything, pick the one gift that you would like out of all, and everything else goes to charity, orphanages, and so forth. We'll make sure that kids who barely live, and in subsistence will get at least this treat. And at first she said, I didn't understand. They were my gifts. Why could I not have two or more? And then she understood why. She said, because I only chose one gift. I was very grateful for that gift because I chose it out of a multitude of gifts. I made sure that that gift would give me so much pleasure, and I'd feel so grateful for that one gift that I couldn't possibly have been looking at in those terms if I had had all those gifts. So there you go. Looking at something with gratitude creates a superbly beautiful experience in life. So now, am I looking at my life in terms of seeking occasions to get offended? And usually I get offended as Dr. Wayne Dyer was writing about this so beautifully in The Power of Intention. Am I going to seek occasions to get offended because I have a sense of entitlement for being values and having values, which, by the way, could terminate at any point in time. And even if I have them, I'm annoyed because I'm not looking at those as gifts. Or am I going to look at my life by seeking occasions to be grateful? So the book, Gratia Cantantes, or Recognisance Therapy, is trying to incorporate these ideas with specific examples, including from history, which show that if one chooses consistently to start looking at life for those beautiful being or having values that one is or has with gratitude, there is a much better way or perception about one's life than if there is a sole focus of things that are not there or that one isn't. And coming back to your son, and I promise I'll
Wonderful.
We have three elements which create our experience about our life and give it meaning. Three. One is the genetic factor, which obviously we don't control at all, right, with its respective characteristics and predispositions and such. And that part in this trinity of life constitutes 50%, 50% of our life experience. Then there are two more elements in what our life experience is. One of them are the outside factors, and usually are material values, also the influence of positive or negative people in our lives. And the other one are the perceptions with which and through which we choose to look at those two and at ourselves. Many people would say, if I ask them which one is more important, which one, let's say, is the 10% of those latter two, and which one is the 40%, they would say it definitely has to be the outside factors, 40%, because that's important, and it's actually the exact opposite of it.
Yeah.
And we'll give an example. So the outside factors, if that were the case, we would not be having any billionaires or millionaires who are depressed. None whatsoever. Who live, whether they be wrongfully convicted or with extremely difficult diseases, or very poor financially, all of them would be depressed. And yet that's not the case. And so what differentiates that, of course, is the 40% perception, meaning how we choose to look at our exterior aspects and what life has given us genetically and socioculturally and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's important. So when your son perceives these as gifts, the musical ear, the capacity, the gift really of seeing colors within sounds and vice versa, then that's when invariably he's going to look at this as gifts and be and feel grateful. Mm-hmm. There are people who can read the auras, and because of the upbringing, which told them you are a witch, you are absolutely a very, very dirty person. You should go and hide everything and negate everything. Then they are looking at these beautiful gifts because of their perception as a sort of punishment. Yeah. So that's sad. So
I agree.
One last thing, perception, which is 40% of our experience about life, with few exceptions, right? Somebody with traumatic brain injury or otherwise with cognitive difficulties, perception is 100% in our control. Yeah. Because based on how we choose to look at something as in terms of the half full and the half empty. I'm not saying one or the other. I'm saying one and the other. Mm-hmm. Then based on that we can basically generate emotions, which stands for energy in motion. With it comes intention, which stand for intelligent tension. With that we have sentiments, which means senti, feeling, the mental sentiments. With that come the respective fear-based or love-based physiological reactions and or responses in our body. So if somebody gets a headache on a psychosomatic basis, the organism is fine. It's just because he or she focuses so much on those reasons to get offended, then there is constriction. So therefore, with that, one has heart attacks, high blood pressure, ulcers. I don't need to go further. Right. And of course, by feeling grateful and finding reasons to be grateful, the whole organism opens. And in it opening, it leads to beautiful circulation, therefore good health, oxygen in the blood, and so forth. And therefore, with that, then we talk a certain way and we act a certain way, and we can go through that model in reverse if you will later on. But it's very important, the perception. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And in fact, I have just in the last little while come up with a new kind of a test for myself, if you will. I'm trying to only allow myself 15 seconds or less to think about something negative, because I don't want it to trigger into an action or into a physical form of any way. So I'm trying to let that be my trigger time, 15 seconds, and not repeating. So many people, they repeat, oh, I injured, oh, I'm this, and constantly repeating and talking about it. It's exactly what you said. You speak your existence. So if you speak words of happiness, of love, of understanding, of grace and perception, those are the things that you'll find coming to you in your life. If you speak otherwise of yourself, those are the things that you'll be expecting to see and show up in your life as well. Isn't that the case?
It's absolutely. And it's interesting to understand over and over again that the outside factors, whether they be positive or negative people, places, things, and time, are neutral. The negative part is not there until we give it meaning. So let me give you an example. Somebody meets an obstacle in life. They say that's a stumbling block, right? That's where I stop. At the same time, a block in and of itself, to use the literal example, is nothing, is neutral until I look at it that way, or I look at the same block as a stepping stone. So the block in itself is neutral until I give it meaning based on how I perceive myself and the world. And based on that, I'm going to use that block to climb further.
I like that.
It's very important to understand that anything that happens to us, particularly on the outside, and also, let's say, genetically or otherwise inside us, these are neutral or objective aspects. These are facts until we give them subjective meanings. Of course, if somebody is abused, looking at the man, to use the stereotypical example, the woman batterer, looking at the man with gratitude is a little bit much. What the individual can do is, even in the time when the abuse is happening, to look at that and focusing, remember it's an and, not an or, at the half full part of the glass, which is what? The victim's own resilience, on how she looks at herself, on how she's looking for occasions to get out, on forgiving herself for whatever constituted weaknesses which allowed her to be hurt, and giving her credit for the strength of being alive yet another day. And certainly leave the negative people, places, stop doing the things, the activities, and move on. This is a very great tenet in the Alcoholics Anonymous, Anonymous's healing process, which is stay away or move away and stay away from negative people, places, things, to which I added the concept of time, because time is very important. So when I cannot control the outside, let me control the inside. And then based on how I control my inside, in the meaning, approaching it from a loving way, then I can go through this from a spiritual perspective. If I cannot really control the outside, until I can control the outside, and then I move on. I'm sorry to digress now.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. I really appreciate it. In fact, I think that we should definitely connect again in the future. And I think there's so much more we could cover. Unfortunately, our time is running short, so we will close this up. But I am so honored and grateful for the time that you took to be here today, and the amazing and educational message for my viewers and listeners. I know that the people that they are will take this with the highest of respect and gratitude as well. So thank you for all you listeners and viewers out there for being so supportive. And thank you, Gabriel, so much for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate greatly your time and the audience's time. And I'm sure you'll inform them of the fact that the book is also free in the PDF format. So
wonderful.
That's important. Thank you very much, Ms. Bradford. I greatly appreciate it. And anytime you would like us to converse again, please.
I love that. I would appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining the S.J. Childs Show. The S.J. Childs Show brings value to families through education and resources. But the S.J. Childs Show isn't just about me. It's about us as a community. Join me as we help educate and support our community, help bring kindness and love and inclusion to all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I really appreciate all the support from all of the viewers and listeners, and I just want to let you know I want you to join me on this journey. Come and follow my social media, and let's do this together. Enjoy the show. Introducing Autism Vehicle Home Safety Kits, Emergency Responder, alert stickers, personal profiles with autism needs and a communication board, masks and earplugs, keeping families and emergency responders educated and safe. Get yours today at sjchilds.org. Helping autism families impact their child's developmental milestones through home relocation, community resources, and home designs. For every 3 homes Natalie Castro sells, she funds and designs a sensory room for a community center servicing individuals with autism. She volunteers to coach law enforcement, first responders, and ER nurses how to have a positive experience for individuals on the autism spectrum. The S.J. Childs Show, produced by S.J. Childs LLC. Thanks to all my viewers and listeners for your continued love and support. And thank you to the guests of the S.J. Childs Show. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you to everyone who continues to support me. Go to my social media and let's build this community together through kindness, compassion, and education for others.